My name is not what matters, but my story might. I am a physiotherapist. My life's work is to help people heal. I guide them through their pain and help them rebuild their strength. I show them how to move their bodies again after an injury. I thought I understood what it meant to struggle. I thought I knew what it meant to overcome a challenge, but I was about to learn a lesson that no textbook could ever teach me. It was a journey that would take me into the darkest corners of my own mind. A journey that would force me to become the patient. A journey that would ultimately teach me the true meaning of healing. The world around us was changing. Fear was in the air we breathed. As a healthcare worker, I was on the front line of this new reality. The hospital, once a place of structured healing, became a place of constant pressure. Every day brought new challenges and uncertainties. We were all running on adrenaline. We were all trying to be strong for our patients. But behind the brave faces, a quiet anxiety was growing inside me. It started as a small whisper, a little knot of worry in my stomach. I told myself it was just stress. I told myself I just needed to push through it. But this was not ordinary stress. It was something deeper. The pressure mounted with each passing week. The stories of loss and struggle were everywhere. It felt like walking on a tightrope, high above a ground that was constantly shifting. My job was to project calm and confidence to my patients. I needed to be their rock. I had to reassure them that they would get better, that they were safe. But inside, my own foundation was starting to crack. The constant exposure to a high-stakes environment began to wear me down. I started to feel a sense of dread that I couldn't shake. It was like a shadow following me, growing larger and darker with every step I took. This growing anxiety was a secret I kept to myself. How could I, a healer, admit that I was struggling? I felt a sense of shame. I believed I had to be invincible. I had to be the one who had all the answers. So I pushed the feelings down. I ignored the warning signs. I focused on my work, hoping that by helping others, I could somehow fix myself. But the storm inside me was gathering strength. It was waiting for the right moment to break. And when it did, it would change my life forever. The healer was about to learn that sometimes the most important person you need to heal is yourself. The first major panic attack hit me like a lightning strike on a clear day. I was at home, trying to relax after a long shift. Suddenly, my heart started pounding in my chest. It felt like it was going to explode. I couldn't catch my breath. My hands and feet went numb, and a wave of intense, irrational fear washed over me. I was convinced I was having a heart attack. I was dying. In a state of pure terror, I called for an ambulance. The trip to the emergency room was a blur of flashing lights and sirens. I was a healthcare worker, but in that moment, I was just a terrified patient, convinced my life was ending. At the hospital, they ran all the tests. They checked my heart, my blood, my breathing. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came to see me. He had a calm look on his face. He told me that my heart was perfectly fine. He said, "You had a panic attack." I felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. I wasn't dying, but what was this thing that could feel so real, so life-threatening? I was sent home with a leaflet about anxiety. I walked out of the same hospital where I worked, but I felt like a stranger. The place of healing now felt like the scene of a terrifying event. The panic attacks didn't stop there. They started to happen more and more often, and they began to appear in the most unexpected places. I would be in the grocery store, and suddenly the familiar feeling of dread would creep in. My heart would start to race. The walls would feel like they were closing in on me. I would have to abandon my cart and rush outside, desperate for air. These attacks were invisible. To everyone else, I looked fine, but inside, I was fighting a battle for control. I was living in a constant state of fear, always waiting for the next attack to strike. Trying to explain this to others was one of the hardest parts. "Just calm down," they would say. "There's nothing to be afraid of." I know they meant well, but their words made me feel more alone. They couldn't see the cage I was trapped in. They couldn't understand the terror that came from nowhere. My world became smaller. I started to avoid places and situations that might trigger an attack. I felt isolated, misunderstood, and ashamed. My confidence, once so solid, was shattered into a million pieces. The person I used to be felt like a distant memory. I knew I couldn't live in that invisible cage forever. I reached a point where the fear of living in fear became greater than the fear itself. I decided I had to fight back. I had to face this monster head on. One of the first steps I took was simple. I started to run. At first, it was just a way to escape my own thoughts. I would put on my shoes and just go, but soon I realized something powerful was happening. When I was running, my heart would pound and I would get out of breath. These were the same feelings as a panic attack, but this time, I was in control. I was choosing to feel them. This physical challenge opened a door to a new way of thinking. I started to explore philosophy. I read the words of the Stoics, who taught that we don't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. This was a revelation. I had been trying to stop the panic, but what if the goal wasn't to stop it? What if the goal was to change my relationship with it? I started to see the panic not as a monster, but as a wave of energy. It was uncomfortable, yes. It was scary, yes, but it would pass. I just had to learn how to ride the wave instead of letting it pull me under. Armed with these new tools, I began a process of gradual exposure. I made a list of all the things I was avoiding: the grocery store, crowded places, driving on the highway. I started with the smallest, easiest one. I would go to the store for just a few minutes. I would feel the anxiety rise, but I wouldn't run. I would stand there, breathe, and tell myself, this is just a feeling. It is uncomfortable, but it is not dangerous. I can handle this. It was incredibly difficult. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but I stayed. And each time I stayed, I got a little bit stronger. One day, I found myself in a real crisis. I was out with friends when someone collapsed. People started to panic. My old self would have been consumed by my own fear. But something different happened. My training as a physiotherapist kicked in. I felt the familiar jolt of adrenaline, the racing heart. But this time, I recognized it. I told myself, this is your body getting ready to help. I pushed through the feeling and focused on the person who needed me. I was able to stay calm, assess the situation, and provide help until paramedics arrived. In that moment, I saw how far I had come. I had used the energy of panic for a purpose. That crisis was a turning point. It proved to me that I was no longer a prisoner of my anxiety. However, the journey was not without its moments of doubt. The misunderstanding from others continued to be a challenge. It's hard for people to grasp an invisible struggle. When you have a broken leg, everyone can see the cast. They understand your limitations. But with anxiety, you look fine on the outside. This lack of visible evidence can lead to a lack of empathy. It can make you question yourself. Am I just weak? Am I making this up? This internal battle can be just as exhausting as the panic itself. The real shift in my recovery came from a combination of approaches. I finally sought medical support, which gave me a safety net and helped to stabilize the intense physical symptoms. This wasn't a magic cure, but it lowered the volume of the fear enough for me to do the real work. The philosophical shift was equally important. I stopped seeing anxiety as an enemy to be defeated. Instead, I started to see it as a misguided friend. It was my body's alarm system, trying to protect me. But it was just too sensitive. By understanding its intention, I could respond to it with compassion instead of fear. This change in perspective was everything. Today, on this day in 2025, I can say that I am stronger than I have ever been. I am not cured of anxiety. I don't believe that's the goal. The alarm system is still there, but now I know how to work with it. I have the tools to manage it. The journey through panic taught me a level of empathy and compassion that I never could have learned from a book. It made me a better physiotherapist. It made me a better person. I understand now that true strength isn't about never feeling fear. It's about feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. It's about finding purpose in your pain. My story is not unique. So many people are fighting these silent battles every single day. If you are one of them, please know that you are not alone. There is a path through the darkness. It takes courage, it takes work, and it takes asking for help. My journey from panic to peace has given me a new mission. I want to share my story. I want to help others understand that their struggles do not define them. We can learn to navigate our inner storms. We can emerge from the darkness, not just heal,